can be done as a county party, even with a Polk County Republican Party t-shirt on, or a booth, or any materials that reference that. You can do that as long as you're not helping them fill out the form, signing it on their behalf, or doing any influencing to tell them to register one way or another. You can do it. And that's what we really have to, as a party, start focusing on. And this is all stuff that I've talked with the Secretary of State's office about. I've talked with different county commissioners county election commissioners about this to verify it. I've checked multiple times just to make sure, because there's a very big misunderstanding across the state that people can't do voter registration unless they have the opposite party with them. That is not true. You can definitely still do it, but we have to make sure that people know that so they're willing to do voter registration. So that's one of the things that I wanted to make sure I clarified while we're here, and why that's going to be important is, in my role, statewide voter registration is something we have to focus on. And what I'm hoping to do is bring in somebody on a Friday, and this will be simulcast throughout the entire state. So even if you live more west and you can't make it to probably Lincoln or Omaha, we're going to still make it so everybody can watch and tune in, but it's going to be some workshop that I want to do on a Friday night and equip people with a lot of the information, get them fired up about voter registration. Then on Saturday or Sunday or both, I want county parties throughout the entire state to be doing voter registration in their county. That could be showing up to church and doing a voter booth at church. Maybe it's doing it at a gun show, or maybe it's standing in a parking lot of bum guards and have a clipboard and signing people up as they're going in to get their feed for their cattle or materials for their barbed wire fence, whatever it may be. So this is something that will help, I think, unite the entire state, but actually get us actionable, doing something that's going to benefit our party. And so this is an example of what we need to do to be able to accomplish that. We really want to have 700,000 total Republicans registered throughout the state by 2026. That means we need to have 70,000 people registered beyond what we have now. It sounds crazy, but if you really break it down by legislative district, it's doable. So really, we have 49 legislative districts. So your senator in the unicameral, that's the district I'm referencing. If we have 49 of those and you break that down, it's really only 1,450 people per legislative district. So if you think about that over from now until 2026, you really can see that you need to register 65 voters over the next 22 months, every month. Not super intimidating when you look at it that way. So that's something that also will be helpful. I know, Madison, you've talked about working with their county a lot. That's something we should be doing together, right? When the counties cross, that's where you build synergy. That's something I've really focused on in CD2, which is Saunders County, Sarpy, and Douglas. I try to do as many events as possible with those counties together. And it's been so fruitful because people love the camaraderie. You can compile your resources and work together, and you're not totally relying on, oh, I have the money, but I don't have the facility. Well, maybe both of you could work together, and one has the resources for the facility and one maybe has a little more money to help host an event. So those are things that I really encourage people to do. And this is a good example of why it's so important. This is in Omaha, but that's the one area of Nebraska that has more registered Democrats than Republicans. So obviously it's going to be a big focus of what I'm doing is helping the Douglas County Republican Party get more people registered in certain areas of Omaha. So why that matters is in LD5, which is where Gilbert Ayala or Mike McDonald ran for office and held a position. There's about 5,000 Republicans versus 8,700 Democrats in that one legislative district. So like I said, Douglas County is the only place in Nebraska that has areas where there's more registered Democrats than Republicans. Everywhere else isn't. But if we take the foot off the gas, even in our rural counties, it can go the other way quickly, especially in Schuyler. We talked about they're being duped already about the Republican Party being evil. And if we allow that to continue, it could go the opposite way very quickly, even in a conservative state like like Nebraska. So for example, if we had somebody that won that election by 6,200 votes compared to 4,600 votes, really we could win that district pretty easily. It sounds crazy, but in a Democrat-held district that's been Democrat-held for a long time, we register 800 Republicans beyond what's already registered, which is really only 30% of all the eligible people, which means 18 years or older, that could be registered as a voter, and you have a 74% turnout, which is actually a little less than what we had in the general election. It was about 78% this last election statewide. But if you do a 74% turnout, and you get 800 more Republicans registered, and get half of the nonpartisans to vote for the Republican candidate, you've now flipped a district in Omaha. It's really not as complicated as we make it out to be. We just have to put in some work and get some more Republicans and actually get them to turn out and register more people. So that's why it'll be very important in some of these communities, because even some of the school board races and city council races were won by Democrats. People didn't understand, oh, they're a Democrat, and we got some people on these boards that aren't so good. So even with a very low turnout, if we have more Republicans in our pool of people, we're still going to be able to win some of these races, even if turnout isn't great. So that's why voter registration is important. I broke this down by each county and each LD. So if we looked at Madison County, for example, and how I did this, I should probably back up so everybody knows my philosophy and how I created this spreadsheet, I guess. I took census data and helped figure out how many people are 18 years or older and subtracted that from the Secretary of State's data, which said how many people are currently registered within the county or in the legislative district. Subtracted those out, and then I knew exactly how many people would be eligible to be registered to vote, and then took the percentage that is already determined in that county. So let's say Madison had 67% of the county is Republican. I multiplied that by the people who are 18 years or older to get an idea of how many we think could probably be Republican minded. And that's where I came up with these numbers. So in the county as a whole, there's about 2,500 people that are probably eligible to be registered as Republicans.
It might be registered or might be not?
Nope, these are people that aren't registered at all. Yep,
Okay.
Exactly. And then in the LD, obviously, it's more because it's a bigger area. It's not just in the county, right? And that's 4,400. Yep. So then you go down to Stanton. It's a lot smaller, right? It's 500, but then you look at the LD and it's a lot bigger. And you've got 4,600, 2,500. Yes?
Just so I understand
Yeah.
those numbers are
The amount of Republican-minded people
That's
that exist within the county that aren't registered yet
so the total number of unregistered
is higher.
is higher.
Yes.
That's-
Yep. I just took like I said, it's an estimation. It's not going to be perfect, but if I saw that in your county, 50% of the people are Republican, usually. Let's say I'll just take a round number, but there was 10,000 total people that are eligible to be registered, meaning 18 years or older. I took that and said about 5,000 are probably Republican. Does that make sense? So that's the thinking that I used to come up with these numbers. Now, is it a guesstimate? Oh, absolutely. But I would say it's a pretty good way of figuring out what we probably have in each county or each LD that's available.
Did you use other data other than
Census and Secretary of State.
well, voter data of some sort to make projections on who was going to be more likely to be conservative, or was it just
I didn't go that, like the modeling you're talking
Because
about.
they're not registered, yeah.
Yeah, since they're not registered, there's no way to do the modeling or anything. But I just took simple percentages of how many people are in that county registered in that party and used that, because it's probably going to be pretty similar. I mean, when you do that in registered party data, usually the percentages are pretty similar when you estimate it out. So that's kind of what I did. But yeah, great question. So this just shows you we have a lot of people out there that we could get on our team. We just got to put in some work to do it. And it's not going to be that hard. We just have to be present within our communities to get this done. And it's simply throwing a tablecloth on a booth at a event that's already in your community, maybe a county fair like you talked about. Maybe it's doing a pancake feed in your community. Maybe it's showing up to a sporting event, whatever it may be. We just got to be involved, set up our voter registration events, and get people registered. So that's kind of a quick, oh yeah, go ahead, John, sorry.
I was just gonna say, we'll make sure you get a copy of this slide. Will you? Yes, absolutely.
Yep, go ahead, John.
Comment, please, on Dodge County, LD 15.
Yep,
Historically, until this most recent census, LD 15 was Dodge County, no more, no less.
okay,
Okay, you're showing 3,000 eligible in Dodge County,
yep.
1,200 more in LD 15. Does that mean those 1,200 are in the part of Douglas County added to us is the city of Valley?
Oh, sure.
Are you saying there's 1,200 in Valley?
Since I didn't look at it that granularly, I'd have to probably go back to answer that fully. I just took what the numbers were from the census and from the Secretary of State's voter registration data and subtracted them, and that's where it came up with. So that would probably be where I'd guess they would come from, but I can't say for certain since it didn't break down the specific area where that would be. And unfortunately, since these people aren't registered, it's just going to give me the overall number, not so much just where they're located, if that makes sense. Now,
If we just do some more breeding, we cure this problem.
Right?
some breeding, yeah, absolutely. But yeah, that's probably where it comes from, John. I don't know probably the answer to that fully, but I would guess that's probably where it is. But it's simple, just voter registration, who's registered now, who's over 18, and we subtracted the difference.
But
and that's
if you look at some of our races, and you guys are just like me, there's county commissioner races and city council races that are won and lost by 10 votes, 20 votes, 60
Right.
votes. So when you look at that number, it's just a no-brainer like what we need to do, right?
well, and some of it too is, I mean, censuses happen every 10 years, right? So 2020 was the last census we had. The census website will do estimates, right? So I got as close to 2025 as I could, which was 2023. So some of it is estimates, so that might be a little inflated with it being 1,200 because they obviously had to take some guesses in what they thought the current makeup is from 2020 till now, right? Now, when I had done stuff, when I drew 2020 data to 2024 data, because I had some different stuff that allowed me to do that comparison, it was very minimal difference. So they've done a pretty good job at estimating the accurate numbers of what we have, because I've compared the two to see, okay, they think that's how many people are 18 years or older, and I did it, and it was like maybe 100 people different. So it was very, very close. But it's not perfect, right? It's never going to be perfect. We're estimating. Right. It's just going to give us a round idea of what's out there. So this is another thing, political subdivision analysis. This is something I hope to help everybody with to get a better idea of their county and what we're working with. And part of it was that voter registration data. That's what I called the legislative district analysis. It's just another way of looking at what do we have as a makeup in our county, or how many people can we then register to help us. The partisan voter index is something that I'm also have a data guy trying to help me with, because there's 93 counties and we have to take data from 2020's election results in 2024 and put that all together. It's a lot of work, and so it's something I'm having somebody try to help me with. But I'm going to pull up what it is. Has anybody heard the reference to, oh, that's a +5 Republican district, or that's a +3 Democrat? That's the partisan voter index. And it's something that I had, let me zoom out a little bit. It's a little bit too zoomed in. The chairman of Sarpy County, which is my county, has helped me with this, but this is what he did for me. I'm going to zoom out even farther. There we go. What I can do is take everybody's county, or it's going to be by LD, I guess. Or no, it'd be by county, excuse me. I'm going to take 2020 election results, 2024 election results, put those together, and we're going to be able to tell you at the precinct level where you need to focus your energy on this next election. So that's what my goal is in my new role. It's going to take a little time, so people got to give me some grace and some time to get it all put together. But my goal is to be data-driven. We need to focus on winning elections based on the data. And so, for example, in Sarpy County, we're still a very heavy Republican county, but you can see that in Precinct 1, which is the one that's the closest east, which is kind of bordering South Omaha, it's a +4 Dem district. We've got some work to do in that precinct. So that's when we're working towards 2026. That's where we're going to focus our energy. Let's look at the one that says 0.34. That's hardly a difference between Democrats and Republicans. It's almost equal. So that's also an area we have to focus on in this upcoming election. Then you go to places like +7. That's probably not an area we need to spend as much time when we're helping do campaigning for our candidates or get out the vote efforts, because it's very strong Republican. But then you go down to other areas like this, +14. We're doing really good in that area. That's the rural part of Sarpy. That's closer to where I'm from. And you go to even like the 70s and 60s precinct, that's the rural part. So you can tell it helps inform I know now where the heavy Democrat areas are of our county. And it helps you because you can do that based on the precinct if you're familiar with where the map is in your county. Yeah, it's going to be super helpful. And so that's what my goal is to do, is help our party advance, because we're just kind of throwing something at the wall and hoping it sticks in most places. And that's not going to help us. Democrats have never done that. Until Trump ran this last time, I would say there's probably not been a very big focus in the Republican Party nationally of focusing on the data. But if you know, this time, he really focused on low and mid propensity voters, and he focused on people that wanted to early vote. He focused specifically on people he knew if he could get to vote, he'd win. And it worked. But he used that data-driven approach to inform that strategy. That's what we have to do. And I'm hoping to provide everybody else this data to help inform how we then go about doing things. So with that, partisan voter index is great, but what's the next step? Well, this is something that our chairman put together using that partisan voter index. He knew these are the places within all of the areas in Sarpy that we need to focus on. So for Papillion, we have Ward 2, 3, and 4 that are up for election in 2026. Well, what does the data say about those areas? Well, they're +6, +5, and +7 Republican. Well, that's good. That's good for us to know. But then you maybe can go down a little bit more and you look at some of our school boards or you look at some of our other areas, and it'll help inform where we need to spend a lot of our time, and you can then target those areas based on who's up for election. I'm not going to be focusing on precinct 60 if that's not a part of the area that's up for election for city council for Papillion. I'm wasting my time, right? So that's why we got to make sure we look at the data, know what it says, and where we can target. So once again, you'll put down all of your data of what races are up, what precincts make up that area. So for example, these precincts you see here make up our Papillion La Vista Community School Board, right? So that's an area that's up for election. Now we know what the makeup is, since it's a citywide race. It's not a specific ward or precinct. It's everybody in Papillion. And then from there, once again, we broke it down to, okay, these are the areas we struggle with the most, because look at the makeup. It's a +4D district. There's a even district, which is pretty much 50-50. And then there's another area that's a +2D and then an even. So we know those are the target precincts when we do door knocking, we do literature drops, we do events. That's where we need to register more voters. So I'm hoping to provide that data to everybody to then actionably do things that are going to help us win elections.
And trust me, if they can get this figured out in Sarpy and Douglas, our rural counties are gonna be a piece of cake.
But that's kind of what the partisan voter index is. Is there any questions on that before I keep going? I know it's a new thing. Sorry, I flipped the slide here. Let me go back so it's showing up correctly. But any questions on that before we go on? All right, cool. Oh yeah, go for it.
What does that exactly mean?
Ask me that again. Sorry, I missed the first
What is
part.
that exactly, the +7 or the +6 or the +4 for the other?
Yes.
Exactly. What's the number? What does that quantify?
It's kind of a percentage. Let me go back to that slide. It'll help to quantify it.
So one that's +4,
4% more.
Democrat,
Yes, more
4%.
Democrat. Yes, so kind of look here. It's kind of hard because there's multiple formulas that go in, but let's just take precinct 1. You can see here the Democrat result in the 2020 election was 53% versus the Republican result in 2020 was 45. So you can see there's about a 7-point difference there, or I guess 8. And then if you go to 2024, it was 54 Democrat, 44 Republican. And so this spreadsheet, if you look at it, I'm trying to get it to pull up correctly. See all that formula at the top? There's a formula that's done in the background that takes that and then works the 2020 versus the 2024 and kind of does a formula to then figure out between the two what's the percentage. But overall, in the most simplest form, there's about a 4% probably difference between the Democrat result and the Republican result. It's kind of how you can think of it between the two elections.
It seems to me, and Liz Davids covered this in her convention speech, and I thought she covered it quite well. That she said that she had a 5-point. She said that she was running in a Democrat district, State Board of Education district, that was a 5-point Democrat district.
Yep.
And she said that means that I have a 10-point disadvantage.
Yep.
And so basically, I think what my understanding is that the 4 points, that's 4 points above 50% that the Democrats have.
Somewhat. I mean, it could be,
Yeah.
but it could be.
Well, there's independents and things like that too. But basically, that's what it is. And you can see on the chart there, then, the Republican is basically 4 points under 50%.
Yeah.
You
I
know,
mean, if you
so
want to
you
think
can
of it that
pretty
way,
well-
it's
you
not
can
exact science that way, but
Yeah,
it's not
no.
always based on a 50%.
No,
It's
no,
the two results.
But I think what you just described was that it was that was the difference between Republicans and Democrats. It's not just 4 points, it's probably close to twice that, you know.
It's the vote share of the election. So, for example, if you look at 53% and 45, that doesn't equal 100, right? Well, so that means that there's some nonpartisans, there's some legal marijuana now, and no labels pack. But the partisan voter index doesn't need that because it's just looking at 100%, what vote share did the Republicans get out of 100%? What vote share did the Democrats get out of 100%? So this formula takes those two numbers and then helps us to figure out the plus. So if it was just Republicans and Democrats, I'd say the 50% thing would be exactly accurate, but it's not just looking at 50-50, it's looking at all parties. So it's somewhat different, but similar.
Yeah.
But yes, that's a good kind of way to think about it. So with that being said, I want to jump in because I know Dana's got a lot of stuff that's actionable she wants to talk about now. I won't go through all the specifics of every county, but what I've done is I've pulled from the Legislative Research Office. I guess Dana has the handouts.
I'm gonna go ahead and pass them out.
Okay,
so they can look
and I'll briefly talk through one of them. I won't go through all of them just so I leave Dana enough time, but every legislative district throughout the state has this information about your legislative district. And so what happens is the unicameral has an office called the Legislative Research Office. And what they do is they pull in data related to the legislative district to help us understand what that district looks like. And it's really done for the senators that live in that area, that represent that area, so they know, what am I working with here? And so, for example, in this LD15, it goes through and tells us what's our breakdown of Democrats versus Republicans versus Libertarians and so forth. You can see in this one, a little pie chart shows 54% is Republican. It also goes through our income. It goes through our demographic breakdown. You can see 83% of that area is Caucasian. But you go to other areas and it's going to be a lot different. Employment, it's going to tell us how many people are 16 years or older that are in the workforce. It's going to tell us how educated the community is. Most people that are 25 years or older, there's, of that total population, there's 23% of the total population that's 25 to 44 years old. Or at 65 years or older, there's 20% of the population that's 65 years or older. So this is just a really good document as we're looking to define how we're going to attack our district, how we can inform that strategy. We got to kind of look at it once again as a data-driven approach. And there's multiple different, I put all of them on here, so we'll once again get you these slides so you can take a look at this. But it's just quickly, I wanted to show people what's available that we've never ever really used and never made sure you all as county party leaders knew that will help us to win elections. So the data is really, really important, and it's something I just wanted to mention that's out there that we're going to use to then inform strategy on winning elections. So I'm not going to go through each of the legislative districts just for the amount of time, and I know Dana has some stuff to talk about. I'm going to quickly mention this, not in a lot of detail. So now, coming from my experience being in the Trump campaign, that was probably the first experience, and John, maybe you have something to add to this too, I would say, but overall, I don't think Nebraska's really seen a full-scale field program. Parts of it maybe, but not maybe a full-scale one until the Trump campaign, or maybe people became aware of it for the first time with the Trump campaign. But it was a full-scale field program, meaning there was door knocking, there was phone calling going on, yard signs being put together, there was postcards being written. Everything you can think of to help us win an election was being done. It was revolutionary for CD2 people, Sarpy, Saunders, and Douglas County. They had never really seen something like this. It's really not new, but it was new for Nebraska and new for that area. And so what I hope to do is to really help people understand how they can do this in their county. Every county's different. We have a lot bigger counties, we have a lot smaller counties, but really what it needs to be is something we do across the entire state. It's get out the vote efforts, and we're needing to do voter registration at its most basic level. We got to knock doors, and we've got to get people registered to vote. And so my goal is over the next 2 years to help counties develop a field program. Some of the tools Dana's going to talk about will help us do that. I think you were the one that asked about, is there a platform out there that exists that has information about who's Republican and how we go after them? That's what's going to help us to be able to accomplish that. And that's, I kind of broke it down here as the most basic form of a campaign field program is get out the vote, meaning we go and talk to all the Republicans, make sure they know who the Republican candidates are that are running for office, and encourage them to get out there and vote. And the people who have requested mail-in ballots, we ballot chase, which means we send postcards to those people, we send text messages to those people, we call those people, and we knock doors of those people saying, hey, it looks like you've requested an early ballot. I'm here from the Republican Party to answer any questions you have about the candidates and to help make sure you get that ballot turned in. Democrats do it really good. The Republicans, for the longest time, have sucked. Until 2024, when Trump made that a focus, we did really, really good. And that's why we won those swing states, because we focused on early voting and made sure those people that did request early ballots turned them in. So that's what I hope to help everybody do within their counties. Even if it's not the full-blown field program, we got to start small in some places. We can't, bite off more than we can chew. Even if it means we just get out to every Republican door in the county or the legislative district, and that's the first thing we do, that's okay. It's a start. We got to start working that direction, and everybody's got to have a field program. So this is why that's important, and I know I'll move on. Because the Trump Force 47 program was focused on, and Sarpy County did their own field program that was ballot chasing, we saw results. We saw every single precinct in the Congressional District 2 portion of Sarpy County, Trump won every precinct. Saunders County, he won every single precinct. In Douglas County, it was a little different, but we made a lot of progress. We cut the vote share by 40% compared to what it was in 2020. So with that being said, we look at it at the precinct level, there was only 32 precincts that were lost by 100 votes or less. That's it, 100 votes or less. If we would have won those precincts and you looked at all of the precincts within Douglas County, that means 116 out of the 232 precincts would have been won by Republicans. That's exactly 50%. That means if you add that result with what we did win in Saunders and Sarpy, we would have won 57% of all precincts in CD2. The blue dot that everybody talks about, a lot of people look at it as, oh, Republicans didn't win it again, but they don't realize how much progress was made. We're not going to dig out of a hole right away. Look at Pennsylvania. They didn't win back in 2020, but they did in 24. This is the first time we've had an organized effort really to CD2 to help us try to make some progress. I truly believe we can get this done in the next election, whether it's 26 or 28. So you can see at the precinct level, 32 precincts was all. We made so much progress. If we can win those 32, you could win CD2. It's really not a Democrat stronghold like people think. There's more registered Democrats than Republicans in Omaha by about 15,000, but in Douglas County, only 2,000 more Democrats than Republicans. So we just got to do the right thing and get voters turned out, and we can win. So this is just, I brought that up not to brag about Sarpy or Douglas or any of that, but to show you why it's important to really focus on getting out the vote, because if we do, we'll see great success. So with that, just some quick events we're doing that will help all of you guys just to kind of keep aware of, and then Dana's going to talk. Leadership Institute is something that I'm working with Mary Jane Trumper to come in and talk about a campaign school. We want people who are even somewhat interested in running for office or maybe helping candidates run for office. So county chairs, people within the State Central Committee, I would encourage everybody to go because it gives you the tools and the understanding and the knowledge needed to help those people run for office. So we're bringing them in. It'll be, I think it's April 12th. I got to look back at my calendar to see if I told you the right day. It's a Saturday. It's, I think, second Saturday. And we'll send it out through email so everybody knows the specifics. But it's going to talk about, are you ready to run for office? How to make a campaign plan. How do you work with the strategy and structure your campaign? It's going to talk through fundraising. It's going to really help everybody know the basics of running for office, which is what we as a Republican Party need to do and motivate people to run for office that are conservative platform Republicans, people who believe the platform and really want to promote that. And so that's what we're going to be doing. So it's something to keep in mind. We're going to do a Robert's Rules of Order training that's helpful to know how to run your county party meetings, or when you're an elected official, most places use Robert's Rules of Order as their founding. So knowing and having knowledge of that's going to be important for your people who got elected to school board, city council, county commissioner board. We're wanting to equip people with the skills and knowledge, so we'll be doing that out in Broken Bow probably September 27th is the date we're looking at. So that'll be something to keep in mind. If you're wanting to learn voter registration, Douglas County is going to be at the St. Patrick's Day Parade, and we're going to be registering voters. So if anybody's interested in coming down to Omaha for any reason, I know Lancaster's also going to be doing some voter registration events, which might be a little closer for everybody. But if you're interested in being a part of that, we would welcome anybody that wants to come and help. and it's just a great way to kind of get some exposure to how that would work, and so you can replicate that in your county. We'll also be doing the Cinco de Mayo parade. I mentioned LD 7 and 5. It's 44 to 42% Hispanic. We've got to start engaging with those people, so we're going to do voter registration at the Cinco de Mayo parade in South Omaha, which is the area where we have Democrat-heavy districts. So it's things like this that you can do within your county that's pretty easy. It already exists. We just got to attend these events and start doing things in that area. So with that, I think, Dana, it's your turn now. And you can talk, and I'll plug away at the computer here.
Well, yeah, I'm gonna switch with you. Though.
Oh, you want to use that? Yeah,
if
sure.
you don't mind. How's everybody doing? I know we got off to a late start this morning. It's almost noon. Is anybody feeling like they want to stop and order some food and have like a working lunch? Or do you want to just push through and try to hear the rest? I'm good on time, but I want to be respectful of your time too.
We don't have a lot left, but it's up to you.
Is that what time do you need? Yeah.
Well, I working lunch. Okay. I'll tell you what. Why don't we? I believe we have the option of going through their buffet, or